Do you love movies? So do I. What's up, y'all? It's KB, and I love movies, inviting you to listen to The Conversation, a film podcast where passion meets perspective and opinion. From the old school to the new, I invite a guest on to discuss the movies that thrill us, challenge us, break our hearts, or even blow our minds. There's always new episodes dropping wherever you get your podcasts. So join the conversation. We don't just watch movies. We love talking about them too. The Conversation with KB Loves Movies, a part of Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
The audio commentary. It's a dying art form, but here at One Track Mind, I, your wonky yet affable host Ryan Luis Rodriguez, analyze film through the prism of these embryonic forms of podcasting, one audio commentary at a time. Masterpieces, crapster pieces, live action, animation, cult classics, films literally no one has ever heard of. No track is too small and no track is too big. Join me and my guests from the entertainment world as we keep these features alive every other Tuesday. Hey, who else is going to discuss Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey one week and Citizen Kane the next? Us. That's who. Sure, you have to put up with my voice, but there's a certain give and take in this industry. That's One Track Mind, part of the Someone's Favorite Productions family, and available wherever you get your podcasts.
Cambridge and Rashawn is a Weirding Way Media podcast.
Yoo-hoo!
Hello and welcome to Cambridge and Washawn, a podcast by two weird guys about the weird things they like. My name is Ronnie, otherwise known as Skelevator on YouTube and Instagram, and I'm here with my pal Mark.
Hi, I'm Mark Bigley, the host of Wake Up Heavy and co-host of the now available Chasing Chevy Chase podcast, or it will be as of the time this comes out.
I've been really looking forward to that.
Just a note for folks, the first episode is going to be available across all of the hosts' platforms as well. If you are a Wake Up Heavy listener, it will be in my feed. If you listen to the Culture Cast or the Projection Booth, it'll also be in their feeds. Those are the hosts. I host with the hosts of those shows. And, of course, on the Chasing Chevy Chase podcast, it will be there as well. So we're spreading that first episode far and wide to get people on board. So you can find it
fantastic.
Lots of places. And then the next one will be out sometime I think we decided on the last Wednesday of the month. So that will either be the third or fourth Wednesday, depending on the month. Kind of like how this is the first Tuesday, and that just sort of depends on when that falls.
I'm really excited about that. I've been thinking about Chevy a lot lately.
Just a word, if you're an uber fan of Chevy Chase, you might be somewhat disappointed because we are not necessarily uber fans. We're not like Chevy Chase can do no wrong and everything he's in is pure gold. So
I've never met somebody that thinks that way about Chevy Chase.
Yeah. I mean, there's some dogs. I think we've done 5 recordings now. It's leaning more towards duds than winners so far. We get into some winners soon, but
yeah, the winners really for Chevy Chase, at least for me, the winners really stand out, and the less than wonderful Chevy Chase things just disappear into the ether for me. I don't even think about those things, but his successful moments I think about quite often. quite often.
Yeah. And there'll be some good stuff in there. So,
yeah.
Just a word of warning.
That's very cool. I'm really looking forward to your episode. If there is a full episode on this, I'm not sure, but I'm really looking forward to you guys talking about Nothing But Trouble.
Yeah, he's a star in that, so it is on the list.
Fantastic. Lots of people have mixed feelings about that.
Yeah, I'm not. That's the one I am not looking forward
to. Speaking of, not to give too much away right now, but the subject matter of this particular discussion today, that particular movie actually does fall into this category of discussion, and that might be the only reason why I like it.
Yeah,
but we'll get into that.
That happens. I find that how much can you separate your nostalgia for a film? And
yes,
when you look at something to talk about it, like on a podcast with a quote unquote critical eye, it can kind of lower it, but sometimes it doesn't. And it's like, no, it's still 1941, and it is an example. I watched it fairly recently. I talked about that on the Saturday Night Live episode. Still holds up. A lot of it's nostalgia, but I don't look at it now and go, I hate this movie.
Yeah. For those of you just tuning in, and if you haven't looked at the title of this episode, we're talking about nostalgia and collecting today. We're just going to have a discussion about this because I feel like, at least for us, it's a pretty powerful force.
It's why we're doing this show, isn't it?
Exactly. I was just going to say that. That's why we talk
I stole your thunder.
That's we're often on the same plane. So, and people who listen to this, I know for sure I've gotten text messages from people who listen, and they're like, "Oh wow, that like really strikes a chord with me because of blah blah blah," and it's often related to nostalgia. In fact, a friend of mine recently reached out in response to our Surf and Turf episode. Steve, he brought up an interesting thing that I had forgotten about that I probably should have brought up in the show, but I'd completely forgotten about it. There was a little tiny skate shop on Maroa and Shaw near that Baskin and Robbins. When he said that to me in the message, I was like, oh my God, that's right. I remember that it was there for like a year or maybe 2 years.
I don't remember that at all.
Very brief period of time. Anyways, if anybody listening are from the Central Valley and you know the name of that shop, send us a message on Instagram or wherever.
Hey, Guy, have you picked up anything related to our shows recently? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, actually, I did. Although this is sort of like peripheral relation. Oh, no, it's actually a direct relation because I talked about Greedo. What was that, our first episode?
Yeah.
Yeah, our very first episode. I love Greedo. Greedo is a huge reason why I collect toys in the first place, as we've talked about before. And recently, my friend on the Frenzy show on my YouTube channel, Oz, he and a few other people who are in our toy community out there have decided to hashtag May the Power of the Force be with you. And everybody's going to be opening up or talking about on their various channels and platforms the Power of the Force line of action figures that came out in the 90s, which are the least valuable Star Wars action figures out there. You can still to this day get those.
For good reason.
Yeah, for many good reasons. You can still get those figures for $2 to $5 a pop and carded in mint condition. So that's sort of like the sort of tongue-in-cheek or appreciation of the nostalgia of that period of time. Reason why they're doing the hashtag May the Power of the Force be with you. So I recently, for $4 plus shipping and handling for each of these guys, I got the Collection 1 version of Greedo right here. With the notoriously small head and small waist and very muscular,
I have one of those. Yeah. I want to say that you gave it to me, or maybe I bought it. I might have bought it at a thrift store, but they're so ugly.
They are really ugly. Well, this is an interesting thing I just discovered, and I didn't know about this because I stopped collecting these like, so the figures first started to hit store shelves in 96, I believe. And I stopped collecting I got a bunch of them, and I stopped collecting them in like 97. And Greedo was one of my first ones, but later on in the line, they started releasing figures with these Comtech chips that like you could, I don't remember even how they worked, but you could plug them in somehow and hear dialogue from the movies.
Oh.
They did revise Greedo to be a more film appropriate sculpt, so I got that one coming my way too. Both extremely affordable. Anyways, that's something that I got related to what we've been talking about. How about you?
Yeah, I got a few things. I think I had been looking on eBay at Sesame Street stuff, either Fisher Price Little People.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to find any in decent condition.
Right, for a reasonable price.
Yeah. And the finger puppets, because those are two things that I had as a kid.
So good.
So I got something related to that. I won't get too specific so that we can save this stuff for a holiday episode, but I got two little figures, Oscar and Cookie Monster, two of my favorites from my childhood. And I got one of the retro Star Wars figures that I had been looking at for a while, just kind of popped up in my Amazon cart at a very reasonable price. And then related to this show, as well as the latest episode of Wake Up Heavy, and I'll be specific about this, I got the Blues Brothers novelization.
Yeah.
Which I loved as a kid because I didn't go see the movie, and that's what I had. I had that and the album to satisfy that obsession with. And I mentioned on that Saturday Night Live episode, like over a year ago, how expensive they are.
Oh, yeah.
And I think I went back and listened because I wanted to see what I had said the price was. And I guess I hadn't found any cheaper than $59.
Oh, my goodness.
So these were mass market paperbacks, right? Which I think I bought at a grocery store off the, mass market paperback book rack. I've looked off and on over the last year or so, and I've also looked a couple times on the Internet Archive, which is where I found that Saturday Night Live book and was able to go, oh, this is it. And it hasn't popped up. Well, it popped up this last time I looked for it on there. So with the Internet Archive, if you're not familiar with it, you can check things out. Some of the items, if they're older or, there's no real copyright issues, you can actually download and get a PDF, or if it's music, I think you can download some of the music. Generally, you check stuff out, quote unquote, for a week or something like that, and then you can download. I don't think you can download it as a PDF. It's another kind of file, but if you're of a certain capability, you can turn it into a PDF. So anyway, it was on there, but you could only check it out for an hour at a time.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, well, I mean, I could do that because I generally don't read much longer than that because I end up falling asleep. So I could read it this way on my computer, which isn't really all that great. So I checked it out for an hour and I started reading it, and every verso page, so the left-hand side, somebody had cut the book up to make these scans.
Yeah.
The last couple of letters or shorter words were actually cut off at the end of it. I could suss it out, but I'm like, this is bullshit. So I went back on, searched again, and there was one for cheap, and my birthday was coming up, and I'm like, ooh, well, I'll wait and see if I get like an eBay gift card or something. And by the time my birthday rolled around and I'd gotten all the stuff I was going to get, I was like, damn. So I went back to get it, and it was gone, of course.
Yes.
And everything else was in the 40, all the way up. Look on ABE books, and they're like hundreds of dollars.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to see, this is a mass market paperback. Who even cares if it's a first edition?
Right.
What's the thing that's making this $300 versus the ones that are $89, which is still way too much for a mass market paperback? I'm like, well, I'll just keep looking. And I kept looking, and an auction came up. Oh, it was Buy It Now, but it was kind of high, but it had a low starting bid.
Right.
I'm like, I'll just put this one on my watch list and keep an eye out on it. So I did that. There were a couple others that were around the same buy it now price. Still too much, not in the greatest condition. This one that I put on my watch list ended up getting a bid. I was like, okay, so the buy it now option's gone. I just thought, well, I'll just see how it goes. It was a Saturday afternoon when it was going to end. I was alone at home and did my thing where I waited till the last 30 seconds, put in my high bid, and not like the plastic rock ball, I didn't keep increasing it or anything. I just let it go to the end and got it for $1 more than the high bid. So the high bidder didn't come back and battle over it or anything. So it was a little bit more than the one that I had missed, but a lot less than all the other ones. It showed up, and I want to say that it is an unread copy of the book. It's dinged up from shelf wear.
Right.
But the spine isn't broken. I mean, it doesn't look like anybody has cracked this book open to read. So I'm pretty happy. And I am reading it, and I don't know, I may end up having to do them again as an episode of the show when I finish the book. So
I don't blame you. I mean, and also, does it make it just question, because this is what would make me nervous. And for books that I have that I sort of treasure, I'm very careful about when I open them. So how are you doing? Because trade paperbacks are so small. Like, how are you doing that? I know some people don't care about this and they just fling it open so that middle crease happens immediately. I just am kind of like moving my head around to see the last couple words. That's how I do it, man.
I am being very careful because I remember when I was a kid and reading Stephen King books and like this book and stuff, I also tried to be careful, but I remember always having ink on my fingers and inevitably the spine would crack a little bit. And once it does, there's nothing you can do about that. Yeah, I'm being very, very careful. If I were more anal about it, I probably would switch back to trying to read the one on Internet Archive, which is what I was doing with the Saturday Night Live book, actually. So as not to mess that one up.
The book that I think about in that regard is the Movie Monsters book, Ormsby. And every time I open that, because I just sometimes I get the urge or the craving to see those images. I'm just like opening it up, turning my head to the side so I can just see it without giving, it's just something about that.
Rubber biscuit.
Hello, this is Chris Haskell from They Live by Film. For those that don't know us, Adam, Zach, and we built a podcast over the last 2 years that's a combination of film discussion from 3 very different perspectives, as well as industry interviews with the leaders in boutique Blu-ray and 4K community. We started with Dev Crocodile, but over time we've been lucky enough to speak with Arrow Video, Severin, Mondo Macabro, Vinegar Syndrome, Radiance, Indicator, most of the OCN partner labels. It's been a blast. You can find us wherever you podcast, and also actually recently as part of Someone's Favorite Production Podcast Network. We hope to see you online.
Well, let's jump into these. So Mark took the time to create some questions that we could ask ourselves, ask each other regarding nostalgia and collecting. And these are awesome questions. And I think we'll get to the bottom of this. First question, we can both sort of provide our answers to this. Were you a collector even at a young age? You go first with this.
I made these questions, and this is something that I've done with Cleo over on Wake Up Heavy as well. And sometimes I don't even know the answer, but I figure, you might have a better answer than me. And I can say not really. I don't think I thought of stuff that way. I guess I could say I quote unquote collected Migos because I had quite a few of them, and maybe comic books, because at some point, even as a young kid, 10 to 12, I had subscriptions to a number of series and also would buy them at the grocery store or wherever I would encounter them, and had decent amount. Plus, I got some hand-me-downs from neighbors as well. So I had a pretty decent-sized stack of comic books as a kid. Would I I didn't look at them as a collection like, oh, I've got to keep these pristine. And I mean, I was anal about stuff. We just talked about the book stuff, and I was sort of the same way. Like, I didn't want the covers to fall off or pages to fall out, and was probably hesitant to cut stuff out of them.
Yeah.
Just because I'm weird. The only thing I can think of that I actually actively pursued at some point, and I don't even know if I had a collection of them, were frogs, like ceramic and or plastic frogs.
That's interesting.
I don't know what set that off. I think I found a ceramic frog somewhere at some point, and the look of it just appealed to me, and so I would try to find, and I don't even know if I had more than like 2 or 3 frog items as a quote-unquote collection. Buttons, maybe, kind of, at one point, that you pin on your jacket. I think I had a little collection of as a kid. Beatles. I know I had Beatles buttons, and I collected Beatles stuff in a way. I didn't have very much, but books and so not really. Like, I didn't do rocks. Like, I could say Cleo, my daughter, collected rocks when she was a little kid. Yeah. Anytime we went anywhere, she'd pick up a fucking rock, and it's like, what are we gonna do with all of these?
I love that. That's So
yes and no. How about you?
In a similar way, I was interested in things, but my answer to the question is different than yours, and that is, I'm fairly confident I was a collector from the very beginning, and part of that is that and there are few remaining photos of me in my bedroom as a kid, but in looking at those, it was pretty clear I was interested in organizing and displaying these things. So the toys that I was interested in, I would play with, but when they weren't being played with, they were on display in groups. And they were in groups by theme and by category, or by IP, I guess is the best way to look at it. Or in boxes that were organized, like in like little shoe boxes or whatever. Mm-hmm. I was kind of obsessed. I would become obsessed with this. You said ceramic frogs, and that's really interesting because when I was very little, we lived near a lake that my ex-stepfather was a groundskeeper for this summer camp, and we lived there briefly. We would live there through the winter when no one would be around, but the people who worked the grounds would be there. And there was like this little gift shop, and they sold little ceramic animals. And I became like, I've always been interested in miniature things. So I would go every once in a while and just sort of, with allowance or whatever it might be, grab a little tiny ceramic animal. There was something about the teeny tiny ceramic animal that was interesting to me. So I couldn't play with the ceramic animals, but I was, for the few of them that I had, they were like on display, and I sort of exalted them. I didn't want them to get hurt. So that's to me an example of how at a young age I would be interested in collecting, and along with all of my varying interests over the years, one thing sort of remained as a go-to, and that were the little tiny PVC figures of Disney and Looney Tunes figures. Whenever I could get one for 50 cents or whatever, I would try and get it. And I had them all on display. And so that's going way back. That's going back to when I was teeny tiny, and I would have moments of play, and then I would return them to their display. So it was this relationship.
I never displayed my toys. I always had them in toy boxes, or this trunk that's sitting behind me that I've had so that my Stretch Monster died in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. I never looked at them like that until I got older.
And so I was just, when we started talking about the theme for this show, I was like, I wonder what it is, because I get an equal amount of joy from just looking at something or holding something versus playing with it.
Right.
There's play sets where you put the figures in and you can engage with the play sets and display the figures, or actually put the figures in and then use the action features to move stuff around. That's a visceral pleasure for me. to this day, even. But then just like behind me, like just having them turning around every once in a while in my little office area and just staring is equally pleasurable.
I mean, I don't fucking play with these plastic rock balls I went on for 5 years about. They're
You
just
don't?
sitting on my desk. I mean, I could juggle them. I've got 3, so I could juggle them. But
yeah, I could
I'm
see
not
you like
doing that.
I could see you just during downtime flicking them across the desk.
Rolling them around.
Get a rock ball free, get a free rock ball.
So when did, maybe it didn't for you, but when did collecting things end?
Yeah, well, puberty
Right.
was
Same.
when my collecting changed. I don't think it ever really ended because I was starting to read Stephen King,
Right.
and I was starting to read Star Trek books. I was starting to engage with, or started to be interested in silent film and old-timey comedians a little bit more than what I was when I was younger. But when puberty hits, I start to do like, my very first job was like painting holiday windows in the small town where I was living. And so I could buy things that were, in my mind, a little bit more mature or advanced than buying toys. So it didn't really, I didn't stop collecting, but I did change my interests. I mean, you know, what I liked about Stephen King is there would sometimes be slightly steamy scenes. And as a boy going through puberty, like finding those were exciting to me. You know, discovering cult films was exciting to me. And if I could find a copy on VHS, or if I could find a book or something that appealed to those particular interests, thinking about subculture, punk, skate culture, film culture, all those things. So it went from toys to sort of edgier subject matter. How about you?
Yeah, same. You stop thinking about Star Wars and superheroes and start thinking about girls and music and books and same type of stuff for me, actually. I mean, we did the surf and turf episode, so I got into all that surf iconography and stuff. Stephen King, read him religiously for years and never really considered it a collection necessarily, but I'd get the paperbacks that I wanted to read, watch the movies when I was able. Music becomes much more important, I think, as you get older.
Yeah, for sure.
I guess you could say you're collecting albums, although I didn't necessarily look at it that way, but once I got into the Beatles, I started buying the albums, and for that, generally speaking, there's a finite amount you can collect. I mean, even as a kid, though, back in the early 80s, there's all these compilations, and you know, Capitol did a whole bunch. That's a whole other story for when I do talk about the Beatles. But so you can garner quite a large amount of these things. Yeah, girls become important. So
yeah, it was
you're not collecting girl. I mean, some people are collecting girls, but that idea of things or displays or whatever becomes a lot less important. And then since you're not really engaging with that stuff anymore, that's when mom comes in and gives them all away or throws them out. And then you spend the rest of your life trying to get them back.
Yeah. And I became conscientious of this. If for some reason friends were going to come over, and if one of them were a girl that I had a crush on, if they came to the house, I was like, well, I better put my little PVC figures away. And then, you know, you start having those thoughts, and it's a little sad to think about it, but kids are, you know, young people, especially junior high and high school, can be pretty cruel to one another. And so we become a little bit self-conscious of all that. And I think that culture has changed, at least for my daughters. I feel like and they've told me this, like being a geek today is kind of considered cool. And, you know, if you collect something weird or interesting or you appreciate, kids aren't afraid to say that they appreciated My Little Pony or, you know, what is that, Magic School Bus. They're not afraid to talk about that stuff.
Ride on the Magic School Bus.
with each other as they get older, which is a really interesting.
Who's collecting Magic School Bus ephemera?
I don't know. I was just trying to think of like maybe there's Magic School Bus stuff, but or what's another thing? Well, here's an example, I guess. Like our youngest has been a fan of Taylor Swift since she was little. Though her friends may not listen to Taylor Swift, they don't judge her for liking Taylor Swift. That to me is like, that's kind of an exciting, maybe it's not like that for all kids, but I feel like it's a friendlier environment for children today to be like, yeah, I like Minecraft still.
Right. Or horses.
And they're not going to make fun of them for liking that stuff, it seems. I'm not a kid today,
or
so
Monster High.
Monster High.
Cleo still gets Monster High figures, so.
and her friends probably don't give her a hard time about it.
I've never heard anything about that, so.
That's exciting. I would just say, for me at least, it never really stopped. It just adjusted based on my interests and also my self-consciousness. And then it came back hard in the late 90s.
Yeah, that's, I think, for me as well, I started thinking about, I always kind of thought about Migos, even in college and stuff. And so I was maybe 6 or so years separated through most of high school. It's like, okay, girls and boobs and music and all that stuff is taking control of your mind. But I remember having dreams about searching in my closet and going, you know what? I think I still have that 12-inch Spider-Man. I don't think it got tossed out. And I would find it in my closet up in the top part where you store boxes and crap. And I'd wake up and I'd be so fucking disappointed.
Yeah.
Going, that was a dream. And I sometimes would go look and just to make sure that that 12-inch Spider-Man, I don't know why it was the 12-inch Migos Spider-Man that I always dreamed of, but I had those dreams regularly.
The 12-inch Migos Spider-Man was fucking cool. Like, there's nothing like it. It's just a very cool thing. It was something I never had, and I can understand why it was treasured by you, and you're going back and thinking about that. I can understand that.
The Incredible Hulk meets Spider-Man. Each figure a foot tall and fully posable.
All you need is a piece of string, and here comes Spider-Man.
In the mid-90s, without any real way to find them, that interest came back. And I remember Jeff Martin and I trying to go, I think we tried to find Arthur's Toys, and they were probably already gone. The one over by McLean High that had been there, and I knew the one down by my old house was gone, but there were these famous covers figures in Target stores from Toy Biz. I don't know if you remember seeing these at all. So they were Marvel figures, and they did quite a few of them, and I remember encountering those, and they were kind of ugly.
The Toy Biz X-Men figures and...
Yeah, X-Men came out, I think, kind of later. They had Fantastic Four. I want to say they did a Spider-Man. They did Ant-Man. They did a whole bunch. If you look it up online, there's just tons of them. Jeff ended up getting me the Iron Man, which is probably the only decent figure because it sort of makes sense. But they had these really tiny heads, at least the first couple of series of them. And this may be apocryphal. I don't know how true this is. Years later, getting on the Mego Museum message board, I kind of learned some of the lore of these. They were supposed to be Mego scale. They were supposed to be 1/9 scale.
Interesting.
So 8 inches. Something happened, and the bodies were actually made at 1/8 scale, but the heads were made at 1/9 scale. So they're always tiny.
Wow.
It works for the Iron Man because you can actually remove his mask. So he's got a great Tony Stark sculpt, but it's kind of small, but it makes sense so that the mask that fits over it isn't ginormous, which is what tends to happen when you do that stuff. And so that kind of satisfied me for a while. And then once I got the internet and eBay, probably Mego Iron Man was probably the first thing I searched for on eBay, to be honest. It took a number of years before I actually ended up getting one, but that was what I would look for on eBay. Generally, were Mego stuff from my childhood and books. which you kind of get to in a little bit. Certain books by certain people by a certain publisher.
Which is also how we met, really. We'll get to that in a little bit.
Yeah, late 20s, early 30s by the time I met Carlita, and I was collecting Japanese toys by then, and so it's been pretty consistent for the last 25 years. I'm now 55.
For me, what brought me back was something I already mentioned today, which was the Power of the Force figures showing up in stores in 96. I was interested in Star Wars, of starting to become interested in Star Wars again in 94-ish, because I was in a band with Matt called IG-88. We talked often about the bounty hunters. It was like this gradual thing that happened. And one of the integral aspects for me was that I lived in a little mountain community that every spring would have a flea market that took over the entire town. It was phenomenal. And I would go there at the beginning of my high school career, I'd go there just to hang out with friends. By my junior year of high school, I was going there to look at the Star Wars figures, to look at the Migos, to look at the things that I didn't have as a kid, the things that my mom had already given away, Masters of the Universe. And I wasn't buying them because I didn't have a lot of money. I was definitely just like soaking in the nostalgia, holding that figure in my hand again, smelling the stink ore, that still had the patchouli smell, and then putting it back down and then going home. But that was also right around the time where I was thinking about starting to rewatch the Star Wars trilogy. It was starting to come back. Then I graduate high school, and then boom, the Power of the Force figures come out. The films are re-released starting in 97, I believe, with the digital changes that Lucas put in there. I'm pausing now so I don't complain. And
let's not get into it.
Let's not get into it. But what the exciting thing was that I could start collecting again, and I did. I didn't go and try to find vintage figures, which was dumb. I realize that was dumb now because they were like 50 cents, $3 a vintage figure at an antique store or at a flea market or thrift store even sometimes. Probably I could have gotten a complete Millennium Falcon back then for probably no more than $20, vintage Millennium Falcon. I regret that constantly. But what I did do is, so Jeff, if you're listening, and I know Jeff listens, we're both mentioning you today. You did this for us. You went with us on these trips, and you and I, Jeff and I would go out looking for Power of the Force figures. And especially when the Phantom Menace was announced, and those figures were starting to come out, Jeff and I would go out searching. We'd go to Rite Aids, we'd go to wherever we could go and find these toys. I went fully in on the Power of the Force line. I had a job. I was going to college. Sometimes I had two jobs, and I could go and I could buy those figures. And then I was very willing to give them away once I realized that they weren't fantastic and that I could probably...
They were ugly as hell.
They were ugly, that they didn't have the appropriate body sculpt that actually did strike a chord with me through nostalgia. It was that I was buying the idea or buying the visage of these characters.
It was what was available at the time, just like those famous covers were what were available at the time.
And I'm looking at the back of this card, and there were some things that were super cool about the Power of the Force line. Like Hammerhead finally had a name. Mama.
Yeah, see, I hate that.
Mama Nadon. And I was like, that's cool. I can see his
Hammerhead.
and then
he's Walrus Man.
Jawas had that little the light tubing, so the light could come through the top of the head and make the eyes glow. That was super cool too. But nothing comes close to the way those vintage figures look. And to me, to this day, it's nothing quite comes close to that. But it was definitely Power of the Force for me that got me back into collecting. And then soon after that, or not soon after that, but actually soon after that, just a few years later, same thing happened with Masters of the Universe. The 2002 cartoon series paralleled a resurgence of interest in toys or interest in Mattel releasing toys. Right before the cartoon series comes out, they re-released the main figures from the line, and they were basically reissues of the original sculpts of these figures. I never bought them, which was a huge regret too. Late 90s, early 2000s, Star Wars and Masters of the Universe come back. And that's really what got me back into it.
Now the universe has changed forever. The Star Wars Power of the Force collection. When Darth Vader and his stormtroopers attack, join Princess Leia, Luke Skywalker, and Han Solo. Escape in the mighty Millennium Falcon. Experience the real movie sounds of lightspeed. When Darth Vader's TIE fighters are on your tail, hear the force of the Falcon's turbo lasers. Can you blast Vader's TIE fighters to pieces? Never underestimate the power of the Force. The Star Wars Power of the Force collection, each sold separately from Kenner.
Hello, my name is Kevin Tudor, and I'm one of the 3 hosts of Almost Major, a film podcast dissecting many major indie studios and the films they release. Every week, myself, Charlie Nash, and Bryden Doyle discuss overlooked, forgotten, or bona fide classic indie films via studio-specific miniseries. We've previously covered numerous films from Artisan Entertainment, Lionsgate Films, and New Line Cinema. Titles including The Blair Witch Project, American Psycho, Dogville, But I'm a Cheerleader, Saw, Requiem for a Dream, and Ringmaster, you know, the Jerry Springer film. Anyways, we have a fun time every week, and we hope you will join us. Subscribe to Almost Major wherever you get your podcasts. Now proudly a part of the Someone's Favorite Productions podcast network.
So we'll switch gears a little bit because this next question is a challenge, and you and I talked a little bit about this, but what are some of the non-pop culture things that you've collected over the years?
Yeah, I had to think about this kind of hard after I thought of the question, because I'm like, wait, is there anything? And I just thought of the buttons earlier, and that's one thing.
Yeah.
Pinbacks, well, I don't know what, if I say buttons, if people understand what I'm talking about. In other countries, they call them pinbacks. Anyway, so I did have quite a few of those. And then I remembered, oh yeah, like in my 20s, when I smoked, I collected ashtrays.
Oh,
and had quite a few of them, and would actually get them from relatives and other people, and those were displayed in the Cambridge and Wishon apartment.
That's cool. That's right. I remember.
And used in the Cambridge and Wishon apartment.
Yeah. Back then on Cambridge and Wishon, smoking in the apartment was just part of what we did.
So I had those out and displayed for a long time, and just got rid of them actually when we cleaned out our rafters, and just discovered during Easter and my sister and my shared birthday celebration that my nephew is now collecting ashtrays, and I could have given them to him, but oh well.
Oh, wow.
There wasn't anything all that special in there. And then the other kind of adult, quote-unquote, thing that I collected were swizzle sticks for a very brief period of time.
Oh, that's funny.
That was one of the things that I searched for on eBay and tried to find, ones that were specific to dive bars and stuff that would just have a bar's little logo or whatever on them. And then people started giving me swizzles. And by people, I mainly mean my mom's side of the family.
Right.
Because antiquing is one of their big pleasures in life.
Oh,
and
that's awesome.
They're all antique collectors. And when we would go up to Portland, that was one of the things that they would do. We would go to... Oh, shoot. Now I've forgotten the name of it. The place where Goonies was filmed.
Oh,
we
yeah.
would go there.
The town is called Astoria. Kindergarten Cop and Green Room were also filmed there. There's
a bunch of antique stores. And everybody would go antiquing. Oh, Mark's interested in swizzle sticks? Let's give him swizzle sticks.
That's
None
so
of which
cool.
I don't know where those ended up, but I don't have any of them.
I love antiquing, and I feel like I don't really share that with my family. I don't know what it is about antiquing that I feel like is solely mine. I don't have any memories of us purposefully going to antique stores, either side of my family. Ever since I was young, anytime there would be an antique store in a town, I would ask to go there.
That's because you're really a 40-year-old woman.
I think so. I really do think so. And then the flea markets in that town I was living in, which was, in case anybody's ever wondering, I don't think the flea markets happen there anymore, but maybe they do. But the town was Oakhurst, which is above Fresno, about 45 minutes away. Every time I'd go, and now to this day, still, I love going to antique stores. And I sent you a picture of some stuff from an antique store in Monterey not too long ago.
Yeah. Oh, and I also apparently collected frogs. So let me, that, and the other thing that we've kind of hinted at, I have a pretty serious, decent Black Sparrow press collection. And that started with Bukowski, but branched off pretty extensively. I have quite a bit of ephemera in that trunk behind me of broadsides and flyers and the little New Year's greetings that they would put out, prospecti for books, and Diane McCall, all the people that I ended up publishing in Wake Up Heavy, the first iteration of that. That's the other thing I seriously collected, mainly because eBay was around and I could track those things down, because we weren't going to find them here in our bookstores, unfortunately.
No, which is a good transition. I'll briefly state this, that I have a fairly adorable little Black Sparrow bookshelf right up here. And, there's nothing quite like the design of those covers and the way those books look and feel.
That'll be an episode for me someday.
Yeah, exactly. That's part of how we met, was bonding over Bukowski. So
Bonding over Bukowski. Yeah, that old bastard.
I know, right?
Old dirty. He's the original old dirty bastard.
Absolutely.
Look at that old man. A sweet birdie with brown eyes said to a sweet birdie with green eyes, he's really fucked up.
So what was available in the bookstores around Fresno, in the used bookstores, surprisingly, were books by local authors. And there were also there was one bookstore in Fig Garden Village that would have, I forget what the name of the bookstore was, that would have local authors there as well. You could buy new ones.
Fig Garden Bookstore?
Yeah, I think that's what it was called. That was something that was also happening to me during my junior and senior year of high school, is I had a pretty influential English teacher. His name's Mike Cole. He was in tight with a lot of the local Fresno authors, poets primarily. I started to meet them because they would just hang out in the Tower District, which is funny, I guess, in retrospect. They were all older writers. I quickly became obsessed with the voices of the Central Valley. So this counts as non-pop culture because, a lot of these people aren't even talked about these days. I do have quite an extensive collection of Central California, Central San Joaquin Valley published authors. And some of these books are published independently. Some of them are published by universities, and some of them are, like Philip Levine, published by larger presses. Yeah, I've got a nice collection of Central Valley authors. But I think pretty much everything else that I've collected over the years does fit into the category of pop culture because that's just how it works. What's the biggest collection you have, Mark?
I would say it's probably either Migos / Migo-like figures, because there are a number that were made by other companies, or my Black Sparrow stuff. Yeah. If I had to count the items separately, I would say it's either one of those. I can't really think of anything that I have that I've spent as much money on.
How's your vintage Star Wars collection, or even Star Wars plus the Gentle Giant figures? What are your numbers there, do you think?
I mean, I have my childhood. Yeah, it's considerable. It's not, I wouldn't put it up against even the smallest novice collector, really. It's really just my childhood ones, and then I think I have 4 of the Gentle Giant figures.
Yeah.
And some of the retro stuff. More recent retro figures, but I don't even consider that a collection.
It's just like here and there items, or a smattering of items. I can vouch for this. Your Black Sparrow collection is really impressive, and your Amigo collection is really impressive too.
Fortunately, none of that stuff is on display. All in boxes.
You used to have your Black Sparrow stuff on display. It was like a museum wall.
There's some of it in one of the bookshelves, all the Bukowski stuff, and the actual books, but a lot of the ephemera is, since it's smaller items and sometimes single sheets and things like that, they're pretty much in a box in that trunk behind me. They did some really cool stuff. I'll just say that.
They did. And no matter whether or not you're a fan of Bukowski or not, John Fonte, Diane Bukowski, Larry Eigner, there are a ton of really important authors that they put out. They were often overlooked because of Bukowski's public interest level, I guess. All of those books are just absolutely gorgeous.
Yeah. And the little things they did are really cool too. The promotional items and all that other crap is really, really well thought out and beautiful stuff.
Making beautiful physical items out of poetry or fiction or essays is really an awesome thing. You were doing some of that stuff too. Like, my largest collection is by far Masters of the Universe. That started, even though I had leanings toward this, starting with the 2002 Masters of the Universe line. I didn't start collecting Masters in a serious way until about 10 years ago. That's when I started to sort of look on eBay for the vintage figures, started to buy the occasional Masters of the Universe Classics figure that was available at a reasonable price. I missed the subscription option for Masters of the Universe Classics back when they were first coming out. So I would grab what I could grab at a reasonable price as they were available either on eBay or on the Matty Collector site. When I really started to get serious with this was when I discovered I could own again those vintage figures that I coveted as a kid. They were fairly reasonable. $10, $5 to $10 for a vintage figure online. Right before, 1 or 2 years before the pandemic, I got my first Beastman, first vintage Beastman figure. And that was just huge for me. It was like finally being able to hold that in my hands. I'd never had that. Then followed up quickly by Skeletor, something I didn't have as a kid, but that I always coveted. And then doing the research online and finding out if you could get the Skeletor with the pink cheeks, that was awesome. I never found one at a reasonable price. But what I did find was Skeletor with the half boots, and that means the front of the boots are painted, but the back of the boots weren't painted. And then it started to get real exciting for me. And then, of course, during the pandemic, right at the tail end of the pandemic, Origins come out. Then Masterverse figures start coming out, which are, for people who aren't familiar, these are the deluxe, fancier or more detailed versions of these characters. And then the Origins was like a more articulated version of the vintage figure. And I just went in as deep as I possibly could without breaking our bank. It's remained that way. I've got a really cool collection of vintage Masters of the Universe figures now, and I think a pretty impressive collection of the newer stuff. And making items and trading items, whether they be little paintings or the sculptural play sets, trading these items for toys and has been really exciting. Been really cool to discover the community out there around Masters of the Universe and be part of that. And went to PowerCon before it changed and went out to the Midwest. And this has been a really exciting era for me as a collector with Masters of the Universe. So yeah, Masters is my biggest collection.
The whole thing of getting those items that you never had, that you coveted, will come up. For me with Migos, that is a whole episode for me.
Yeah.
I've touched on them. I'm not going to get into any details, but there are certain figures that, man, oh man, they put the whammy on me, and I never had them.
Yeah.
That kind of is the segue into the second part of this, which we'll get to in a second, because we're going to take a break because I need to go to the bathroom.
Me too.
And we need to play some ads, so we'll do all that and be right back.
Each superhero action figure sold separately from Mego.
Hey, this is Jason Kleberg from the Force 5 podcast, a show that forces a guest to come up with a movie-themed top 5 list topic, and then we reveal our picks on air. Top 5 heist films, top 5 tearjerkers, top 5 movie dogs. Every show you'll be asking yourself, what would be on my list? Guests include directors, screenwriters, actors, podcasters, musicians, authors, and even a professional wrestler. Subscribe to the Force 5 podcast, and you won't just be a listener, you'll be a list nerd. The Force 5 podcast, available wherever you're listening now.
Jeff is like an extremely consistent listener of our show, and he's going to love being mentioned twice.
Well, Jeff, you can answer this question for yourself while you're listening, and everyone else. How do you define nostalgia, Ronald?
This is really hard because it's sort of anomalous or ethereal is the best way I can describe it. It's difficult to describe. Here's an example of the anomalous nature of that nostalgia button being pushed for me. I hadn't seen Cinderella since I was a kid. It's always been my least favorite Disney film. It just wasn't that exciting to me. Like, I love Sleeping Beauty, always loved Sleeping Beauty. There's something about the artwork. Snow White, like if we're talking princesses, like Snow White and Sleeping Beauty, the best Disney princess movies in my opinion. Although I've seen some other good. Anyways, Cinderella as a kid for me was not that interesting, but I put it on the other day just as an experiment. I was like, I wonder if it's going to kick something into gear for me. And boom, the moment that first song is sung by her, it gave me a kind of euphoric feeling in my brain and my body. Like, so it's not just logic, it's not just physical, like it's not holding the action figure, it's not hearing the song, it's like a full body experience, like a visceral joy. Nostalgia for me is that. Okay, just yesterday, Fowler had a street fair and, walked by one booth and there was a slight patchouli smell at this booth. And boom, not only am I in the 90s with the neo-hippie movement, but I'm also in the 80s with Stinkor. Like, boom, that smell just gives me a visceral joy.
Smells are the most effective trigger of memory, I have come to learn over the years.
For sure.
And I think that's scientifically proven. Anytime we go back to Portland, the minute we get to a certain point in the drive...
Yes.
I start smelling those smells. And we went there every summer while I was a kid, going back. I mean, we haven't been to my mom's childhood home in years, but when we would go there, it had a very distinct smell. Yeah, I put down as my definition a glorified view of the past. And that's very one note-ish.
Yeah, glorified could be read as either snarky or...
Yeah, but we don't have the nostalgia about bad things.
Yes,
we have them about good things. So that's why I use glorified. But so I have a funny recall that it was the impetus for this show, which I sent to you. Carlita and I were laying in bed, getting ready to go to sleep, and doing the worst thing you can do before you go to sleep at scrolling through Instagram.
Oh. Absolutely.
We do it pretty much every night. I look at posts, so pictures, and she mainly looks at reels, which often these days have music in the background of them, or someone talking, or both. And so she was doing that, and this song popped up. So this will explain why this is playing at the beginning of the episode, because people are going to go, what the fuck is going on?
Or they're going to be like, that song!
Yeah. Right, of a certain age, I think, will do that. This song came on, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. I can't even explain. It's the same sort of feeling you're describing, where it was full brain and body, and it hit me upside the head, and I was like, oh my God, I haven't heard that song in at least 35 years, if not longer. And I said, I totally remember that song. And she's like, oh yeah, Music Box Dancer. The title means absolutely nothing to me. That fucking melody, man.
Oh.
It had been burned in my brain for quite a while.
Yeah.
And then completely disappeared. But hearing it again no specific memories because I don't know why I remember it. I kind of have figured it out a little bit, maybe. It was ubiquitous at a certain time in the early 80s. I think Carlita and I talked about this maybe yesterday because I was sourcing the music to put on here.
Yeah.
And she kind of chuckled when she heard it again. I said, yeah, I put that on my phone. I went to iTunes this week and put it on my phone. And it played in my car on one of the days that I drove Cleo to school. But I said, it was on like one of those compilation record ads that they used to run on TV. I said it was like either soft rock or instrumental classics or something all the time. And people used it for their ballet recitals or for their piano recitals or whatever. I mean, it was just massive. I don't know if that guy made $1 billion off it. I hope he did because
I hope so too.
It's I can't even describe it.
I will say this. My stepsister had a music box that had that song in it, and I was absolutely fascinated. I would turn that knob and wind it up, open the lid, and watch the little ballet dancer dance and listen to that song like on repeat. Every time I was at their house, which was like every other weekend, like I would beeline it for that, either the, what is that? Now I'm blanking out on it. We've talked about it before, but the Light Bright. You plug in the things, and was it Light Bright?
Yeah,
Light Bright. Okay,
I don't remember talking about that before, but yeah, that's what that is.
I think I dreamt us talking about it. I would beeline it to the Light Bright or to the music box that they had upstairs in their shared bedroom. When you sent me that song, you're like, "This is the impetus part of this conversation we're going to have." I was like, "Oh, that's interesting. I wonder if it's the song." And then I pushed play on the YouTube link, and sure enough, that song and all that nostalgia came back for me too.
Yeah. It's like a minute long, really. It's a 3.5 minute song.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing repeated 3 times with an extended sort of version at the end.
Yeah.
And because I listened to it and I'm like, oh, they're just repeating this over and over again.
That takes me to another song which you're going to play right now. And that is Minnie's Yoo-Hoo.
With the cows and the chickens, they'll sound like the dickens when I hear my little Minnie.
Now, Minnie's Yoo-Hoo...
Excuse me?
Yeah, I know, right? Minnie's Yoo-Hoo was a Disney song that was on one of my... I had a little Fisher-Price record player when I was a kid, and I had a few Disney records, one of which was the Electrical Parade, and another one which was Disneyland songs, so like the Pirates of the Caribbean and the Haunted Mansion, these songs that were snippets of the rides.
Right.
But I had this other one that was like a collection of songs. I still to this day can't picture the album cover, nor have I ever been able to find it. But it had a song on there called Minnie's Yoo-Hoo, and I didn't even know the name of the song, but I was in the car. Do you remember Blake Hansen? I was in the car with Blake Hansen in like 96 probably. He put a tape in the machine in the car, and it was that song, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. This song, I must have listened to it 1,000 times as a kid. The anomalous, again with the word anomalous, the anomalous nature of nostalgia can be embodied in this. I didn't know what the name of the song was, but as soon as I heard it, it hit me. Sort of a similar experience that you had. So what I did not too long ago, about 3 months ago, I found a little, I found it on vinyl. It's like a single, and it's the song. Now I've put it on like 10 times since I bought it on the record player. And I did the same thing. I found it on Apple Music, and there's something about that song that just takes me to a place.
I'd say something really off color right now, but maybe I shouldn't.
Well, it's a little hard to not. Because of the name of the movie, but the name of the song.
Is it just a bunch of queef sounds, Ronnie?
No, it's quite lovely.
Well, I'll insert it where you advised me to. I wrote the title down and everything.
I actually think that that's a good lead into what part does nostalgia play in your collecting habits?
Yeah, huge.
An enormous part.
Yeah.
I think you and I have both talked about this consistently, and that is like the search for. It's like the researcher in us is not just looking for information, it's also looking for that sensory fulfillment
of
this thing. And I don't, like, for me, nostalgia can sometimes bring back difficult memories. And sometimes it's the act of facing that difficult memory through nostalgia too, which can be difficult, but also rewarding in a kind of healing process, if that makes sense. But it can also be joyous, and the healing can be joyous too. It took me a while to figure out that part of the reason why I collect stuff is because it helps me deal with difficult situations I faced as a child, and how important the role of plastic played in my life as a child going through these difficult things.
Yeah.
It plays a very strong role in why I collect things.
You're already getting into the next part of that question is, what is it about that? And that was my thought. Like, not everybody does this. I know tons of people who would look at this and go like, why? Not even comprehend. Why are you buying toys from your childhood?
Right.
So I always think like, is it just that glorified view of like, these things made me happy, whether you had a happy childhood or not, whether you had difficult times, these were the things that made me happy. My memories around them are happy. Maybe my life wasn't happy. I had a pretty safe, happy childhood. Not a lot of trauma or anything. My parents have been together for decades, and so I don't really have any bad memories. Why these things? What is it? What is this fulfilling?
Right.
I don't know. I don't know if it's just the aesthetics of the thing. Because you've mentioned aesthetics.
Yes.
I'm going to fumble over that word now. Anomalous aesthetics. Of these things. That's a big part of it. I have mentioned to you in the past, like I've got a few of these items on my desk here. So Munch Bunch or Cutie Fruities. When I grab this guy versus when I look at Star Wars figures versus when I look at the Cyclops from the Tomland toy line versus whatever else, it's like you mentioned with the minis Yoo-Hoo and the music box. It's a very specific thing.
Yeah.
Not necessarily even a specific memory. It's a different feeling for each thing.
I agree. Yeah.
It's weird. I can't really articulate it very well, but it's not the same old thing for each item.
Exactly.
So they've hit something in your brain, and I know that this is scientific to a certain degree. The neurons that connect when you watch a movie or listen to a song, it's a specific neuron.
Yeah.
It's a specific thing each time. So I guess it's just hitting those things again.
Yes.
Because it's not just a blanket, like, oh, nostalgia, oh, stuff from my childhood. There's a Micronaut in front of me. That elicits a very specific feeling of nostalgia versus this grape.
Here's what I think it is. It's the closest thing to time travel that we can have. Each, like you just described, each thing or each song or each smell is like a portal to a place. And it's a brief experience. It's like this, you can have that moment. If I listen to a song by the Melvins that I listened to on repeat in 1998, I'm taken to that moment. If I listen to Minnie's Yoo-Hoo, I'm taken to my bedroom in Dunlap. Or if I smell patchouli, I immediately think of Stinkor. If I see the cross, it's really weird. It happens to me sometimes on The Frenzy on Thursday nights. We've got a Masters of the Universe expert on that show, Adam from the Battle Ram blog, and he'll sometimes show cross-sell art from the back of Masters of the Universe packaging when we're talking about a particular character or the history of a character. And just looking at that image gives me that feeling, and it takes me to that place where I'm looking at the back of that card back art as a kid. Part of me feels like special in that I accept that opportunity. Like I feel a little bit sorry for folks that push those opportunities away or feel like, oh, I shouldn't do that because that's not mature or whatever. However they define it in their brain. I feel like it's a gift to allow myself the opportunity to experience those portals again and again and again. It's, for me at least, I know for you it's a little different, but for me, some of those portals take me to difficult places. it has helped me in a very serious way heal.
Yeah.
And when I was in my 20s and in my early 30s, I wasn't aware of the healing properties of this kind of engagement. It helps me sort of face things that I was angry about for many years, and why I was self-destructive and all kinds of stuff. And so collecting, for me at least, is a way of accessing a kind of joy that's also difficult. Like, it's a really weird place to be. Difficult joy. It's like it's and
anomalous aesthetics.
Yeah, anomalous aesthetics. It is aesthetics. It's smell. It's thematic, and it's exciting. I mean, there are things that I'm not even that interested in, like the Metallica Black Album. Like, I much prefer Metallica from the earlier years, but the Black Album takes me right to this place, this very specific place in my sophomore year of high school, of hearing those songs and being with friends and being in that moment.
Yeah, the weird thing about the Music Box Dancer being a big trigger for this, the other was that I couldn't decide on a specific topic. But like we talked about when you were tracking down that Husker Du song, I mentioned I don't look at songs that way, because most of it I kept from my child. Devo and the Beatles and the Doors and the Stones and Pink Floyd and all that stuff I kind of kept. I tried this whole past week. I'm like, what's a song that I want to remember? And I can't think of one. It comes to me, like I mentioned then, a lot of it is I've heard a song in a movie.
Yeah.
But like 16 Candles. There's a lot of good songs on there that I would like what is that song?
Yeah.
Then realize, you can watch the credits and try and figure it out, but there's a ton of songs. Which one is it? As I mentioned, nowadays, when something comes on in a movie, I Shazam it. And then now I've got that saved on my phone. I can go back, look at my Shazam saves, and try to find that song on iTunes. This has happened in a lot of shows like Fargo and stuff. When the series was based in the 70s, they were playing all these songs. I'm like, oh, what the fuck is that? And I'd Shazam it. Now I can go find it. Now I can put it on my phone. So I have to encounter them again to be like, oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
That's what happened with this Music Box Dancer. And I'm like, this would have been something I called a guilty pleasure back then. Like, the melody of that song is just like amazing.
Yeah.
So I put it on my phone. I literally haven't thought of that. I can't even see myself going, what was that instrumental piano song that they played all the time when I was a kid? Boy, I sure loved it. I had no memory of it at all. But man, when it came back hard. It was bizarre.
Well, an example of this is Yaz, or Yazoo, the band from the 80s. They recently had like 2 or 3 songs on commercials. I hadn't thought about this band since the 80s. But when those songs came on the radio, I remember noting the name of the band, seeing their records in a store and thinking that's something I want to have eventually. And then that period of time passed in my life. I didn't have the means to buy records for myself, but when I was a kid and having my little tiny radio and going out into the woods with my toys and listening to music on my battery-powered radio, several songs by them, the hits by them, would come on, and I just loved them. There was something I absolutely loved about those songs. I hadn't thought about Yaz or Yazoo in 40 years, and suddenly commercials are using them, and I'm immediately transported to a place. A similar thing.
I'm
amazing.
Sure I've lost music over the years. I just don't think about it in the same way as like, oh, I never had that Mego, or what was that plastic rock ball? I remember, they didn't stick, but when they come back, it's like, oh yeah, okay. See, back then on the radio, like, you're lucky if the DJ even says the title of the song before you turn it off or leave or whatever, or match it up with the song that actually played, because they might play 4 songs and then say all the titles of and artists of the song, because they have to do that. Try and match it up, and then what do you do with that information? These days it's so much easier.
here's something that I know you can identify with, and I don't think I've talked about it on this show before, but maybe I have. When I first heard songs by Tears for Fears, I was really digging in deep with the Muppets. And I was also drawing Muppets on a regular basis with Sharpie pens in my mom's classroom before school would start. So I have this, through the gift of nostalgia and sensory, the magic of our sensory, associative properties of our sensory abilities. If I smell Sharpies, I immediately think of Tears for Fears and the Muppets. If I see the Muppets, I immediately think of Tears for Fears and I smell Sharpies. If I hear Tears for Fears, I immediately think of the Muppets and Sharpies. That's phenomenal to me.
I think you told that story on your Muppet episode.
I think so, yeah.
Because this all sounds really familiar to me. You're hitting
it's really
nostalgic feeling for me.
Yeah, it's magical. To me, I feel like it's magical. It's a weird thing, and I hope that other animals are able to experience this like we do, because it's pretty cool.
Well, I mean, you hear about dogs or cats finding their way home, so in a way, they have some kind of nostalgic instinct, we'll say.
Well, we kind of answered all the last three questions with our with our answers. So we've talked about what the feelings that nostalgia and collecting elicits in us. What need or desire does this fulfill? What makes us surround ourselves with items from our past? All that I think we've made pretty clear.
I agree.
Let's talk briefly about contemporary nostalgia, because this is something I've been thinking about too. What am I going to adhere to when I'm 70 about this particular era of my life?
Ooh.
Yeah, it's that's interesting. I've been trying to like sort of predict the like forthcoming nostalgia.
Ooh, yeah, I don't know, because I'm trying to think. Because for me, I don't know. I would say it's probably the same stuff.
Yeah, maybe
because for the last since shortly before I met Carlita, which was 25 years ago.
That's
it's
so cool.
been the stuff from my childhood.
Right.
That I got back into. As far as, am I going to feel nostalgia for The Mandalorian in 25 years?
Maybe.
I don't know.
But that can also be traced back to Boba Fett. So it's like,
well, and it's maybe different when you're older. It might be that, having a kid is what you ponder on.
This is bringing me to what I was just about to say.
The only thing I use Facebook for these days is looking at the things that I posted in the past. So when I go to Facebook and open it up, I just hit the memories button on the side.
Yeah.
I was a lot more active when she was little.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm seeing is stuff from her playing in the yard right now as it warms up, every year around this time. And so she's back out playing in the dirt and playing with rocks and her little dinosaurs and lizards. And so I don't know. I don't know if it'll be things or if it'll just be home life.
I had a moment with our youngest about 4 or 5 months ago. We cracked open her collection of Tsum Tsums. Remember those? TSUM.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really interesting because holding those little things in my hand and going through the different Disney characters, it was the three of us, Ariella and Faith and I, and it took us all back to that era where we were actively searching those out, hunting for them as a family. We'd go on road trips. We'd stop by Target. We'd look for Tsum Tsums. It was really a fun time and trying to figure out which mystery bags were what characters. And it took us all back to that, it wasn't that long ago, but I guess was it, like 5, 6 years ago? It was pretty significant. That portal, the Tsum Tsum portal, exists for us. So I think having kids helps with this. I think it probably exists for people who don't have children too. It takes some distance to identify what that portal is going to be or what that trigger is going to be.
Yeah.
We had no idea that by breaking out those Tsum Tsums that we'd all be... we spent a good 2 hours going through and just like looking at them.
Yeah, I don't know where Cleo's are, but she has quite a few of them too.
Yeah.
The little rubber ones and the plush ones.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. I'm looking behind you, and you've got those alien eggs from, 5 Easters ago?
I'm not sure when that was.
Ago?
Yeah.
And that you and I both were like, we got to find these.
I think I just ordered them on Amazon.
I know. But when they were first announced, it was like, wow, that's cool. Like,
they probably haven't been cracked open since then.
Yeah. I see posts by Dustin Cropsboy, a.k.a. Sugar Frosted, and he's working on McDonald's stuff. And that gives me nostalgia for last year when you and I were digging deep in McDonald land.
But that relates to an old thing.
Portals can piggyback off of Portals.
Sure.
The Star Wars memory of the late 70s, early 80s, and the movies and the toy collecting. We have I have the memory of toy hunting with Jeff Martin in the late 90s, and that transfers to watching The Mandalorian and finding these figures and then the re-experiencing Power of the Force now. It's like these layers of nostalgia can build over time if you're open to them.
Yeah, and it just brings my question back up. What if we had stopped at those 3 movies?
I think we'd still be in it. Those 3 movies made such an impression on me, at least. I think I'd still be fascinated by the toys, and yeah, I think so.
We'll never know because it just keeps coming.
Yeah, there's just more and more. There's more stuff coming. I will say that I'm less interested in the new stuff, but I am always interested.
Hey, so I wanted to mention something that I keep forgetting, and I finally wrote it down this time, and it's been a while now since this happened, but our little show here, and I'm going to call it little, finally hit 500 plays a while back.
Woohoo!
So actually we're closer to 600 now, so...
Nice.
Pretty insignificant amount of plays for a show that's existed for over a year, but it's a milestone, so there you go.
We're doing this for the joy of doing it.
Yeah.
Maybe if we complained more, then we would get more listens.
Rage bait. Let's give people rage bait.
We are not going to play into that because that's bullshit.
Just like I started with Wake Up Heavy, if 10 people listen, it's 10 more than I would have expected. So
Absolutely. So if you're listening right now, thank you for being here and listening to us rant about this stuff.
I have another definition for nostalgia.
Oh, let's hear it.
Nostalgia is a bitch.
It is. Oh, and we haven't even talked about the addictive qualities of this.
I know. That's a whole episode, I think.
Yeah. The downside, the dark side of nostalgia.
That gets me in a bad mood.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can talk about that sometime.
Addiction and all that stuff that people fall into when it comes to collecting, and that's scary, and we don't want to downplay that at all because that's really difficult for a lot of people. I have kind of figured out a way to keep myself in check, but I know that probably just works for me. And
well, yeah, and I've had to put a check on a lot of things, and there are external things that help make that easier. But that's a good topic to do a second one of these episodes on. Actually, it might get it'll get a little rough though because I have some strong opinions about a lot of that.
It'll be our Empire Strikes Back type of sequel to this episode. It's gonna get dark, folks.
Yeah, I'm gonna write that down actually.
Yeah,
dark side of collect.
Yeah. The nostalgia strikes back.
Yeah.
But this is good. I'm glad we talked about this today, and I hope that it resonates with some folks that are listening. What do you got coming up, Mark?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't care. I'm going to plug this, though. My wife and I are now currently watching The Bionic Woman, so that
cool.
ties into my $6 Million Man stuff. We got access to the 3 seasons of The Bionic Woman, and we watched 4 episodes last night while Cleo was at prom.
Nice.
They're pretty cheesy.
Yeah, speaking of cheesy, my wife and I have been watching, as we're falling asleep at night, Super Friends in chronological order. And those early episodes are really bad. And it's super cheesy, but it sure does push the nostalgia button for both of us. And we were talking about how we don't recall any of these episodes, but there's something about the theme song. There's just something about the Hanna-Barbera animation. It's kind of just nice to have on as white noise in the background as we're like dozing off. It's pretty great.
Well, you should start scrolling through Instagram instead, and maybe you'll stumble on a 45-year-old earworm that'll smack you in the face with memories.
Exactly.
With vague memories, but very strong. Very strong, vague memories, if that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah, definitely. It makes sense to me. Tune into the Skelevator channel if you're interested in more of this type of stuff. We've got the Frenzy on Thursday nights where we talk about toys and other pop culture stuff and whatever is garnering our interest in the moment. And lately I've been working on this Snake Mountain build that's ongoing, so tune in for those or watch the back episodes of those. The build is coming along, so it's a lot of fun. And also, it should be mentioned that Jeff Martin, who has been mentioned on the show several times in today's episode, and I have started making some music with our friend Matt. The name of that band is No/and, and you can, if you're interested in hearing the stuff we've been doing, it's on Instagram as no_and_band. That's something that's been fun recently too.
You know where to find me if you want to find me. If you don't, I'm over plugging myself.
Well, I'm going to plug you a little bit because I really enjoyed...
Let's get out of here.
I enjoyed the last episode.
Let's wrap this up. If you want to hear me and my daughter talk about the Blues Brothers that I finally got her to watch, you can go over to Wake Up Heavy.
That's right. That's what I was about to say. Good stuff.
There you go.
I enjoyed it. Remember, until we meet again, have fun, stay weird, and keep collecting.
Dun, dun, dun. And here's some more Music Box Dancer.
Or Minnie's Yoo-Hoo.
I'm the guy they call Little Mickey Mouse. Got a sweetie down in the chicken house. Neither fat nor skinny, she's the horse's. Winnie is my little Minnie Mouse. When it's feeding time for the animals, and they howl and growl like the cannibals, I just turn my heel to the hen house deal, and you'll hear me sing this song. Oh, the old tomcat with his meow meow, old hound dog with his bow wow wow, the crow and the mule. Gosh, what a racket like an old buzzsaw. I have listened to the cuckoo his cuckoo, and I've heard the rooster's cock-a-doodle-doo. With the cows and the chickens, they all sound like the dickens when I hear my little Minnie. Mickey Mouse. Got a sweetie down in the chicken house. Neither fat nor skinny, she's the horse's. Winnie is my little Minnie Mouse. When it's feeding time for the animals, and they howl and growl like the cannibals, I just turn my heel to the hen house deal, and you'll hear me sing this song. Oh, the old tomcat with his meow meow, old hound dog with his bow wow wow, the crow and the mule. Gosh, what a racket like an old buzzsaw. I have listened to the cuckoo his cuckoo, and I've heard the rooster's cock-a-doodle-doo. With the cows and the chickens, they all sound like the dickens when I hear my little Minnie.
Cambridge and Rashawn is a Weirding Way Media podcast.